I received a letter from a man who was supposed to be dead. And the first thing it asked me was, "Do you know what your wife does every Tuesday morning?" No return address, no name, just my name on the envelope, handwritten in ink so dark it looked like someone had pressed down hard on purpose. Like every single letter mattered. Like they needed me to feel the weight of it before I even opened it. I almost threw it away. I almost didn't read it. I really wish I hadn't. 6 sentences. That's all it took to collapse the life I thought I was living. 6 sentences printed on plain white paper like a quiet bomb set years before I ever knew it was ticking. Do you know what your wife does on Tuesday mornings? Do you know who she works for? Do you know what your father actually died of? He didn't die in a car accident. He was buried alive by a man named Marcus Hale, and soon you will know everything. No signature, no explanation. I told Dana about it over dinner. She set down her fork. Just for a second. Then she picked it up and said, "Probably spam. Someone has the wrong address." It was such a calm response. Too calm. I should have known right then. But I didn't, because I trusted her. A week passed. Nothing. I convinced myself it was a prank and moved on. Then the second letter arrived. Same handwriting, same dark ink, no return address. But this time, the questions were specific, personal, the kind no stranger should ever know to ask. Did Dana tell you she took a second job last year? Did she tell you the man she works for owns the building where your mother used to live? Do you know the name Robert Calloway? Your father did. Robert Calloway. I had never heard that name in my life, but the way it was written, it felt like I was supposed to have. Like it was a name someone had deliberately kept from me. I searched it immediately, and what I found didn't make me feel better. Robert Calloway. Convicted 19 years ago on financial fraud charges. Sentenced to 22 years in Millbrook Correctional. His entire life, his business, his home, his family, gone overnight. The articles described him as a family man, a partner in a mid-size investment firm, no prior record. Then I searched Marcus Hale, and I understood why his name had been written in that letter like a warning. Real estate magnate, philanthropist, the kind of public image that's been polished so carefully it almost glows. Charity galas, school donations, a man beloved by the city. The kind of man, I was learning, who had something very dangerous to hide. I found his company website, his staff directory, a team page with headshots and job titles. 3rd row, second from the left. My wife. I sat at my desk and did not move for 20 minutes. Dana's face on a stranger's website, listed under private client services, whatever that meant. Tucked inside the second letter, I hadn't mentioned this yet, was a photograph. Printed on regular paper, like a screenshot off a phone. It showed Dana walking into the glass tower on Mercer Street. Not a side entrance, not a delivery door, the main entrance. The kind reserved for people who belong there. The timestamp read, Tuesday, 9:14 a.m. Do you know what your wife does on Tuesday mornings? She had told me every Tuesday she went to yoga. She had been posting about it for months. A mat, a smoothie, a caption about mindfulness. 6 months of Tuesday morning posts, none of them time-stamped near an office tower downtown. She had built a cover story, carefully, over months. I asked her that evening how work was going. She said fine. I asked if she had any new clients. She said not really, and tilted her head like I'd asked something slightly odd. Not a flicker, not a single crack. That was the moment I understood. Whatever she was hiding, she had been rehearsing her way around it for a very long time. Before I tell you about the 3rd letter, I need to tell you something about my father. He died when I was 4. Car accident, they told me. I grew up with one photograph and a story that had no details and no edges. My mother never talked about it. By the time I was old enough to ask real questions, she had already been diagnosed with early dementia, and the answers had gone with her memory. My father was, in every practical sense, a ghost. Until the third letter told me he wasn't. I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. But I was standing inside a life that had started to feel like a set piece, and I needed someone to tell me I wasn't losing my mind. He followed Dana for 6 days. On Tuesday, she went to Mercer Street. 2 hours inside, she left carrying a brown envelope. She did not go to yoga. On Thursday, she made a phone call outside a coffee shop and was wiping her eyes when she went back inside. On Saturday, she drove 40 minutes out of the city and sat in her car outside a house neither of us had any reason to be near. 15 minutes. Then she drove home. She made pasta for dinner that night. She kissed me on the cheek and asked how my day was. I had the third letter sitting in my jacket pocket. The third letter was different, heavier, longer, written like someone who had been carrying something for a very long time and had finally run out of reasons to stay quiet. My name is Robert Calloway. I believe I am your father. I know that is not possible in your mind. You were told I died. I did not die. I was taken from you. Marcus Hale is the man responsible for what happened to me and to your mother. He buried what I knew, and he buried me with it. I have been in Millbrook Correctional for 19 years on charges I did not commit. I don't expect you to believe me. I'm only asking you to come. Come and look at my face and tell me I'm lying. A visiting slip was folded inside. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office building and I cried. Not quiet crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. The kind that has been waiting since you were 4 years old and someone told you your father was dead, and some part of you, some small, stubborn part, never quite believed it. I drove home in silence and made one decision. I was going to Millbrook. I told Dana I had a work conference. She nodded and told me to drive safe. Millbrook Correctional sits off the highway behind a tree line, gray and quiet. The kind of place the world decides to stop looking at. I filled out the visitor form. I sat in a plastic chair for 45 minutes and rehearsed what I would say, rehearsed how I would feel. None of it prepared me for what happened when they brought him in. He was in his late 60s, thin, white-haired. He walked with careful, measured steps, the walk of someone who has learned not to rush because rushing doesn't change anything in a place like that. He sat down across from me and looked at my face for a long time without speaking. I looked at him too. I had spent my whole life staring at one blurry black and white photograph. A young man with dark eyes and a jaw like mine. This man had the same jaw. I felt the air leave my body. He spoke first. I've been waiting a long time to see you. I couldn't find any words. Finally, I asked the only thing I could. Did you send me the letters? He looked at me carefully, and then he said 6 words that cracked everything open. I never sent you any letters. The silence after that was the loudest thing I have ever heard. I don't know how you found me, he said slowly. I have no way of knowing your address. I have no way of knowing anything about your life. Someone sent those letters in my name. Someone wanted you to come here. I felt cold all the way through. But the questions, I said, about my wife, about Marcus Hale, about you. How would a stranger know all of that? He leaned forward. Who else knew you were coming here today? I drove home in 3.5 hours. I don't remember a single minute of it. When I walked through the door, Dana was already at the kitchen table. She had a cup of tea and a look on her face that wasn't surprise. She knew I had been to Millbrook. She had known before I even left. It took 2 hours of the most painful conversation of my life to get the full picture. Yes, Dana had been working for Marcus Hale, but she wasn't working for him. She had spent the better part of a year building a case against him, quietly, methodically, at enormous personal risk. Financial records, testimonies, documented evidence of the false charges that destroyed Robert Calloway's life 19 years ago, all of it traceable back to Marcus Hale. All of it pointing to one man who had paid to make my father disappear because my father had discovered something inside Hale's business that could have ended him. Dana had known about Robert Calloway for over a year. She hadn't told me because the case was stalling. Her legal contact had gone quiet. She was running out of time and options. So she sent the letters. She wrote them in a handwriting that wasn't hers, used a name she had researched down to the prison address, and sent me down a path she knew I wouldn't stop walking once I started. She needed me to go to that prison. She needed me to sit across from that man and see my own face in his, because without that, she said, I would never have believed the rest. I stared at her across the table, and then I asked her the question I had been afraid to ask. Dana, I said, how long have you known who my father was? She didn't look away. Since before we met. The room went very quiet. She told me the rest slowly. Robert Calloway had a daughter. He raised her alone until she was 9 years old, when he was arrested, convicted, and taken away. She grew up in the foster system. She changed her last name. She rebuilt herself from nothing. She told me her birth name was Elena Calloway. I had been married to Robert Calloway's daughter for 6 years. She had found me deliberately. She had researched my father's case, traced the connection to Marcus Hale, and eventually traced it to me, the son of the man whose testimony had helped seal her father's conviction. My father had not been entirely innocent. He had known what Marcus Hale was doing. He had been paid to stay quiet. And when the walls closed in, he had agreed to give a statement that pointed the finger at Robert Calloway and kept Hale untouchable. My father had been a coward, and a man spent 19 years in prison because of it. Dana, Elena, had every reason to hate me. She had every reason to use me and walk away. Instead, she had spent years gathering evidence to free the man my father helped destroy. I looked at her across the table, and I did not know what I was looking at anymore. She asked me only one question. Do you believe me when I tell you I love you? I have been sitting with that question for 3 months now. Robert Calloway is still in Millbrook. The case is moving again. There are attorneys involved now, documents subpoenaed, and Marcus Hale, for the first time in 19 years, has gone very quiet in a way that powerful men only do when they know something is coming. I still sleep next to Dana every night. Or Elena. I don't know what to call her anymore. I don't know whether she married me because she loved me, or because I was the closest thing she could find to justice for a father who lost everything before she was old enough to understand why. Maybe it was both. Maybe love and revenge can share the same body for long enough that even the person carrying them can't tell them apart anymore. What I do know is this. The man in that photograph, the ghost my mother handed me as the entirety of my father, was not who I was told he was. And the woman who sent me to find the truth about him may have had reasons I will never fully understand. There is a version of my life on the other side of all of this. I'm still trying to figure out if it's mine to claim. But if you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones who had the most complicated reasons for finding you in the first place. And sometimes the lie that breaks you open is the only thing that could have set you free.